Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast. How's it going, everybody?
Pretty good.
Sorry, John cracked me up.
I know why John cracked you up. Well, so, how's everybody doing? Good.
Great, because we got a wheel on this show.
We do have a wheel, thankfully. Okay, we're keeping this wheel. We had to eliminate. It was a poll. I still don't understand. I don't think we gave the poll long enough, but that's fine. We're going to eliminate the wheel for our other show.
Another show,
partially. All right. So tonight we're going to compare and contrast Dracula, 1931 version versus 1978. We're going to do another wheel for next week's remake, and then we're going to do a round of What'd You Watch.
Oh, geez, I forgot about that.
Which one?
What I watched.
I'm sure you watched a bunch of stuff other than Indian films.
Yeah, just do Omkara. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
All right, so John, this is one of your remakes. So let's
get into
it.
I know. I'm humbled by this. So I picked Dracula because I wanted to pick real contrast in movies, and obviously the remake with Frank Langella, 1979, directed by John Badham, Laurence Olivier, Kate Nelligan, what's his name, Donald Pleasance. Compared to the original 1931 Dracula. Now, I just found out before we got on the show, that Ralph had never seen the 31 version. Now, knowing Ralph, I know he's going to have a lot to say about the 31 version. So before he trashes
the acting was so stagey.
I just want to explain something. So in 1931, when you look back on this movie now, it's a very stagey movie because it's based on the stage play. But for the time period that this film came out, and Todd Browning's brilliant direction, it's a very iconic movie. When you think of Dracula and when you envision Dracula in your head, it's because of this film. Okay, Bela Lugosi with the widow's peak and the tuxedo and the cape and the the accent, no fangs, but it's a very iconic film. It's one of, and I love the Universal monster films. It is a little more plotting than like Frankenstein, watching it again recently, but it's still like a movie that changed vampires forever. Okay. Now, the reason why I picked the 79 version. So, one, I saw in Boston, I saw Jean Leclerc in the stage play that this film is based on. And I played Harker in a stage version of this. So I saw this movie in the movie theater. And the best way to describe this film is gothic romance. It's really not a Dracula horror film. It's a very romantic Dracula. And Langella, who was playing this on Broadway, the producer saw the play and said, he wanted to remake Dracula. And this is the route he wanted to take. He wanted a much more sympathetic, romantic Dracula. And that's how it's played. This is like a Dracula, and this is going to sound sexist, but that's okay. This was a Dracula made for women. And
well,
Frank
it's funny you say that. I saw one of the comments on IMDb where they said, "Hey, thanks, Frank. My wife went home and effed me last night because."
Well,
of
he
your film.
said any guy that saw the play said afterwards, I had the best sex of my life after my wife saw that play.
I mean, it's a kind of horny film.
It is, but it's very, I know what John Badham was trying to do. But again, remember, it's based on the play. So they skip over in Transylvania, they do show the ship, but it's kind of, there's no real backstory. And his character is very charming, very sympathetic. In fact, the line, we already talked about the line, I do not drink wine. Well, in the original, there's a big pause between I do not drink wine. And him, it's very matter of fact, I don't drink wine. And he plays this pretty straight. Now, there are horror things in it, like when the daughter becomes a vampire with the red eyes. And I mean, that was pretty horrific. And when they kill the daughter. But it didn't do well at the box office because I think people...
really? I thought it was a hit.
No.
Well, didn't Love at First Bite come out at the same time?
Yeah. Well, vampires were big at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think people wanted to see this type of movie. Now, Frank Langella was universally praised for his performance because it was such a different.
This made him a star.
Everyone's used to Christopher Lee at that point, and George Hamilton completely changed it with the comedy aspect of it. But I remember seeing this in the movie theater, and there were things about it that bothered me, like the when he eventually bites Kate Nelligan's neck, and they do the whole laser thing.
Oh my God, that was so
with
cool.
the silhouettes of their
John
bodies
Williams did the
riding.
music. I'm like, am I
know.
hearing Indiana Jones right now?
Yeah, it was
Yeah, a little
really
bit.
weird. That was weird.
It was so of the time. Actually,
Well,
a little
I guess it was,
later.
but you just didn't, especially a movie set in that time period. Even the last scene where he gets killed and you see the solar flares, that was kind of psychedelic too. But I
Does he
wasn't a
get
big,
killed?
Well,
You
you
see
see the kite at the
smiling.
end.
That kite flies away.
You
I
see the
thought
kite
maybe-
at the end,
That's-
and she
yeah, that's
smiles.
cool.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan of this movie. I thought he was really, really good in it, trying to create something different. And I also like it because it's not like West Side Story where you're comparing the same thing. This was such a stark contrast from the original 31 version and a lot of the other versions.
Really? I mean, it was
Yeah.
pretty. It was pretty because I watched them back to back.
Me
And
too.
it was pretty
Oh, you both did?
faithful. It was pretty faithful to the first film.
Well, because it's based off
Well,
the same play.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say this is, the novel Dracula is written by Bram Stoker, and
Right.
I think it's a great novel that does not, because of the structure, the way the novel's told, does not really go well to film. And personally, I think maybe it was the Jack Palance version was truest.
Oh, that's a good one.
Some way.
That is it when he's crawling up the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
Jack
the
Palance
Dan
version.
Curtis directed
And
one.
the other one with
Yeah. Now,
Kolchak. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Night Stalker.
but this movie is not neither of these movies. See, there are so many movies about Dracula. I don't know if you tried to look and see where it was playing, but there were hundreds of movies of Dracula in the title. But why this is a remake is because it's not less based on the book than it is on the Balderston play. They didn't go when they wrote the 1931 version. They didn't go back to the book. The play was the
Right.
source material.
Right.
The book inspired the play. The play inspired the movie, which was also the case here. But the big change was, they didn't have the Transylvania stuff,
Right.
but they incorporated some of that into other parts. Some of the best lines from Transylvania part. So this was an excellent remake. If you were going to say one film is a remake of another in the Dracula realm, these two are the most closely related of the two films. So I just wanted to throw that in about why the films were the way they were. So, and
Yeah.
I have lots of opinions, but
Yeah, I do too. I can't wait to start spewing them out, but I want to hear other people before I get into it. Chris.
Well, yeah, I'll jump into this one. I like, of course, like you mentioned, that the 31 version's the one that starts with with the tuxedo and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember reading Bram Stoker's Dracula before the Francis Ford Coppola version came out. And like Sean mentioned, it's all told in diary entries.
Right. By
Story.
Harker, right?
Yeah, I think it's by different people, but it's
epistolary writing.
yeah, but it's like
Watch your
all told,
language.
yeah, in diary entries. But it's funny. I saw that this was directed by John Badham, and
Yeah.
John Badham's one of those guys that I always felt like he's kind of like this journeyman guy, but occasionally he'll have some of these movies you can tell it's a paycheck job, and then there's other movies that he does that you can tell he actually cares about, and I think this falls into that second category. And I thought he took some really interesting risks. Honestly, the movie didn't quite really work for me. Like, I wish they had departed the Langella character a little bit more. Like the cape, I don't know what it was, but that cape just felt kind of goofy to me, that the way he was playing him in a much more serious way.
Right.
And I get it. It's in the 1800s and, he's from a different country and all this. But that cape just, I don't know why, but it just threw me off. It made me
Dracula
think.
without a cape?
Well, that's what I mean. It just kind of made me feel
You think it was too fancy, Chris?
It just didn't
No,
fit with the
I
way
think
he
it
was
was
portraying it. right?
I just felt like it harkened almost too much back to the
Yeah.
Well, isn't that why he just tosses it off to the guy when he walks in the dinner thing? Wasn't that part of his? When he walks in that first dinner thing, he just takes that thing off and tosses it back. Like maybe that's his
The
way
guy
of
said, "Can I
saying-
take your cape?"
Yeah.
But I really liked like a lot of the choices they made where this movie is essentially in black and white, right?
Right.
I thought, I mean, there are some elements of it that are straight up black and white, and the elements that are in color are so washed out that they're not far from black and white. And I thought that was really cool. I really liked that. I thought some of the whole, even though they weren't all that special, like, you know, the scene where he jumps out of the window as a man,
Yeah,
but,
turns
you
into a
know,
dog.
transforms into a wolf
wolf.
as he goes through the sill. You know, a lot of that stuff I liked, but for me, it was hard to kind of, you know, having read the book and kind of remembering the book and all the characters in the book and how they really changed the characters around. Like it's Mina that dies and it's Lucy that survives,
Right.
and in the book it's flip flopped and stuff like that. All in all, I thought it was pretty interesting, and like I said, I like some of the visuals that they affected, but honestly, in like you said, in the hundreds of Dracula movies that are out there, this one really kind of lands in the kind of fun, kind of interesting to check out, but not that great.
Is this the first one in the modern era? Because 31, I mean, that made Dracula the romantic Dracula before
Lugosi
Twilight. I mean,
considered himself a romantic character.
Oh, and he was considered.
Lugosi
Bela.
considered himself a romantic.
Yeah, I think Christopher Lee sexualized it. His Hammer films definitely sexualized it, and so, but it wasn't romantic. So I think this was really probably because it's like I said, it's based on the play, and the play was like this. So the other thing, Chris, I wanted to say, you know, on the latest Blu-ray of this, there's two versions because he originally wanted to desaturate the color, but they didn't have the technology to do it. So he did the best they could with what they had. Well, the studio didn't like it, so they put out a version on DVD that they brought up the colors. Well, people who had seen the original didn't like it. Well, then the technology changed where he could desaturate it and almost make it look black and white. So on the latest Blu-ray, there's two versions, one with the color and one desaturized. Because that's the look he was going for. He was going for kind of a black and white look.
Right.
And
Sure.
I tell you, I didn't feel I could judge the color because I don't know about you guys, but we had to watch a standard definition version, so it wasn't as sharp and everything wasn't as good.
So
as
it looked
had been
desaturated
HD.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So we got double the effect, probably.
Yeah.
I got it on
What did you
Amazon.
think
I
of
think
it?
I got the full res. I thought.
Now, Drew, had you
Yeah, me
seen
too.
the original Dracula?
I have never seen 1931's
can't
Dracula
believe that.
before.
Both of
I
you.
can't believe it either. I can't believe it either. I actually remember there was a picture book that I had when I was a kid. I used to keep getting it out of the library, and it was the Universal Monsters. So it had pictures of Bela Lugosi as Dracula, it had pictures of Lon Chaney in the full makeup as the Wolfman, the Mummy, all that stuff. And of course, you know, I'm alive, so I've seen this imagery. I thought the first part of the original Dracula, where Renfield first encounters him, was like genuinely unsettling,
Yeah.
and then the rest of it didn't do anything for me.
Well, then the rest of it became the play.
Well, it didn't. It wasn't stupid or bad or anything. It wasn't Blade Trinity's version of Dracula, for Christ's sake. But it was like it's one of those experiences where I go, I get it. I get why it's so important. I also, you know, it's 90 years old, and it has influenced so many things, like we talked about with Citizen Kane.
Right.
If you've never seen Citizen Kane before, you don't know anything about it, you'll watch it, and I go, look at that camera move. You go, yeah, it's been in 100 movies since then, but that's the first time. And you know, Bela Lugosi, of course, we were talking about this before we started. My biggest exposure to this version of Dracula is Tim Burton's movie Ed Wood,
Yeah. Oh my
with
God.
the portrayal of Bela Lugosi coming to be in one of Ed Wood's movies, and his anger about Karloff, and I mean, it just, you know,
Played
it's
by
just
Martin
fantastic.
Landau.
Yeah, Martin Landau, he won the Oscar for that,
Yes,
right?
he did.
He deserved,
Yeah,
well
I mean,
deserved too.
That's such a bizarre, spectacular movie. Wonderful performances all around, and so funny, like
Yeah.
just so funny.
I'll do
And
better.
for Bela Lugosi to be this, I mean, iconic character, like you said, this is the establishment of that look that means Count Dracula. I see. The other problem is I don't think I'm a Dracula guy. For these classic ones, I didn't think the Langella version was any more interesting. I think he's very good. The only thing I really remember from the Coppola version was more boobs, and there's a scene where Harker is at Dracula's castle, and Dracula's shadow is cast on the wall, and he turns away, and the shadow kind of goes after Keanu Reeves for a moment. And I thought that was really creepy. I think I'm more of a Nosferatu guy when it comes to these classic vampires, because the whole thing that doesn't work for me, and it's not even a criticism, it's not romantic if it's hypnosis. And to me, like if you glamour someone, that which is a common power across vampires and stuff like that, if you glamour them and you change the way they think, then it can be a very powerful thing in a story, but it's not the same as like I love you across all time in our lives because you made me. It was like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in one of the later seasons, Willow, who's a witch, she cast a love spell on her girlfriend. And so her girlfriend, because they were having some problems, and her girlfriend is just, wonderful and affectionate and crazy about it. But then she finds out what Willow did, and it's actually really devastating because it's not real. And so the version of Dracula where he's like, I could see if you look at him and you go, okay, he's sexy, he's very charismatic. I'm a huge Frank Langella fan, so I didn't have any problem understanding that he was attractive to people. But the whole like this is actually love forever kind of thing, I don't know. I've just never liked that about that part of vampires. So I'm really glad that I finally saw it, as I had not seen either of them. So thank you for that opportunity. But I liked War Games better.
Let's play a game.
What am I going to say here?
Uh-oh.
I remember this film. I went to the movie theater to see it, and it made me horny as hell. And part of it has to do with the hypnosis part of it, right? It's like you're completely losing control. Someone else is taking control of you, and you're just giving up that control. And that scene with him and who's the actress at the
Kate Nelligan.
Kate Nelligan. I was watching this at a place that I just didn't want to be horny at, and I was like, Jesus Christ! Now I remember.
Were you at a convent or something?
No,
Yeah, church.
I was actually watching it at work, to be honest.
Oh,
Not on my phone. I was watching it full screen.
you couldn't watch it on the phone.
I was waiting for a script, so I was.
Oh wait,
watching this.
when you just watched this?
I watched it this week. What do you mean?
Oh,
Just
okay.
watched it.
Wait. You're saying when you watched it now, it made you horny?
100%.
National Geographic
I
is a
thought you were
touchdown
79
for
when you saw
a
it.
lot
No,
of kids for
I meant
nudity,
this
so I
week.
get it.
This week. And it's everything to do with that Kate Nelligan scene. And then they cut away to that goofy, like you were saying, the goofy red this. And I'm hearing Indiana Jones and Jaws themes and all this stuff. And I'm like, you're killing me here. Stop this. Right? Just get to it. So I remember this as being the sexy Dracula. So then I go, okay, I watched this. Now I got to go watch the 1931 because it would be a crime if I didn't compare and contrast.
I can't believe you've never seen it.
And then I'm like, holy shit, what was going on with people in 1931? Because like, I mean, it's ridiculous. The only good character in that film was Renfield. That guy, that was great. And then all I could think of was the other guy in
Artie
Love at
Johnson.
First Bite. Artie Johnson, spot on Renfield. So I'm watching that 1931 going, I don't what is the big deal with this thing? Okay, it's iconic, whatever. The way they kill him he's killed off screen,
Right.
So
you don't see him.
easily, too.
Right? Now, let's talk about, okay, couple of things in the 78 version. First of all,
The one that horned you up.
Kate, I mean, she was gorgeous, and it's
Yeah.
like she's just given, and it's just like I can't even
She's
talk
just
about it
giving
right
what?
now.
She's
She's
just giving
opening
it
her
up.
shirt up and going, go for it. And when he slices the neck
Yeah.
and she starts drinking, there's been way more. Like there's a great lesbian vampire movie called Vampires. Unbelievable. Okay. It's as
about
vampires,
the
lesbians.
vampire lovers.
It's like that's sexy, but nothing is more sexy than him cutting his chest and she's sucking the blood. It's not explicit in this thing, but it's super. I can't.
It blows your mind, doesn't it?
It's like I'm like, oh, it's blood, right, Debbie? It's blood. Blood is the
my
thing.
God. I hate to confess it too. I definitely love this concept of vampires.
Okay,
it's so sexy. It is so sexy.
She likes that kind of penetration.
I make the mistake of reading IMDb while I'm watching the films, and it turns out that Frank Langella has this eye problem.
Yeah,
where his eyes
twitch.
And now it's all over the film.
Right.
And the other thing I learned is
I didn't even notice that.
His eyes are constantly moving.
That's why Badham did close-ups on his eyes, because they were doing it on his own, and he said it looked creepy.
It worked once. It worked once when the guy cut his finger and he looks over and you go, his eyes are doing that.
Yeah, it's like vibrating with
right.
desire,
But then it's throughout the whole film. Nowadays they would just they would just CGI the eyes.
It's a nervous tick.
And then I learned that Donald Pleasance is like a scene stealer.
Right.
He creates these scenes where he's eating or doing something.
He's eating in every freaking scene.
Because continuity, because it keeps him in the scene. Right. Because if he
can't edit around it.
You can't cut around that stuff that he's doing. And he's known in the industry as the guy who does this. So I'm like, wow, now I'm watching him do all his stuff. And it's taking.
You shouldn't read that while the movie's going on. You should read it afterwards.
So the bottom line is, I think I enjoyed the '78 film for what it was. It was kitsch. I remember as a kid being horny in the movie theater. Now I'm horny at work. So it brought back some great memories. But while watching the 31 version, I'm like, oh my God, this is why I don't understand. I don't understand the love for that film.
Oh my God. Well, for one thing,
it's got a very short.
It's got a much shorter running time.
I get all that stuff.
Well, you knew I was going to say short runtime.
I was talking and you interrupted me. But that's
no. It had it's a much shorter runtime than you think.
The bats.
It's very short. But and Drew's right about this. I think looking back on it now, the second half of the movie is basically one set piece, right? So it's very staged. Where the opening scenes that Browning shot in that
Great
castle,
sets.
going up the stairs,
there was some beautiful.
It is like the little bugs and armadillos running around with the coffins.
And some bee comes out of a little coffin too.
I mean, that stuff
are those
is
vampire
really...
bees? What was the point of that shot?
Yeah, they were vampire bees coming out of the
that's what that was.
Yeah.
Listen, the scene with the staircase.
Yeah.
Where the wide shot and you see that staircase, that looked like that's a real set. That's
and he goes through the cobwebs.
And what about that big staircase at the
Harker
end?
Got him all over him.
Yeah.
And also the scene, even in the at the beginning when they're in the stagecoach and they say don't go up there once they find out. I have to go up there. And the scene where Lugosi is driving the cart.
And he turns into the bat.
Yeah, but I mean the way they lit it, I mean it's just
the movie is it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Okay. And there's a horse scenes where horses is pulling up and all that. But like every time they'd cut to his close up and his eyes do his
But again, I know that. But think about 1931. What that probably did to those audiences.
I know.
I mean,
now at that time, Bela Lugosi was the rage. I mean, the women were crazy about it.
Well, he was.
He was like Frank Langella.
But they didn't even want him. They wanted Lon Chaney.
Would have been a mistake.
Well, it would have. But he made nothing on that film. But he wanted $3,000. And you're right, Deb. He was big on Broadway, but they did because of his accent. They didn't want him because of his accent for the film.
His accent was so perfect. Well,
I just like to
say one thing about 1931.
This one still gave me a boner, so that's why I'm giving it a big.
Well, here's an important thing for an American horror film. One distinction Dracula has is that he's actually a vampire. Because up until then, they were making horror films that had, in America, not Europe. In America, if it was a horror film, they always gave it like a logical conclusion.
Right.
Like if you saw one of the other times Bela played a vampire was in Mark of the Vampire, where they thought there were vampires, but it turns out it was all a plot
to
try to uncover
London
a criminal.
After Midnight.
And and London After Midnight. So, Lugosi and Dracula was really the first studio picture where there's a supernatural villain. Because even if you look at it, like Lon Chaney's big head's hunchback, he's just a normal deformed guy like me. And Phantom of the Opera is just a damaged person. So this was really the first step into supernaturalism. But I'll tell you one thing, we were watching a bunch of had some people over for an outdoor movie. It started raining. We came in and watched some of these movies. And a lot of people hadn't seen them. Remember that night, baby? What people really loved was the sets. Those sets are magnificent. The castle set. Oh, and yeah. I'm with Drew completely, too. That Transylvania stuff is terrific. But that staircase at the end, where they're going down into the basement of the Abbey, that's a massive set.
Yeah.
That is so tall. It's terrific. And the basement of the Abbey was great, too.
The 1978 version, Laurence Olivier, kind of 79, I'm sorry. Kind of weak, yeah?
Well, yeah, that was a cash grab for him, that's all.
Sloane was much better as Van Helsing in the 31.
Now, the lore of Van Helsing, I guess, because I'm like not totally in the lore of all this stuff. Was he not always a vampire hunter, or did it start with the 31 film and the?
Yeah, it started with
He wasn't a vampire.
In the 78, the 79 version, he dies.
Right.
Van Helsing is killed.
Right.
By the way, how hard did he have to throw that hook in the back of his Dracula to pull him up in the
through that cape? That had to be
impressive.
That's a pretty hard throw.
I thought he
well,
just
can I tell you the
bat.
stupidest thing in the movie?
Turned into a bat.
How about this for the stupidest thing in the movie?
Which
horses can tell vampires. So they go take the horse to the grave of the girl. But in the scene before, Dracula rode up on a horse.
Yeah.
And then Frank Langella, and then Dracula said Frau Bruckler. Remember that?
Yeah.
And the
was that a known thing that horses could find vampires?
Young Frankenstein just made me laugh for the first time. Thank you.
That was not a known thing.
No, I don't think that was. That was something they added. I still don't believe the definitive version of Dracula has been made yet, but I do think in many ways Lugosi was the definitive Dracula.
Well, he set the stage
so freaking
for all
creepy.
I mean, Eddie Munster is Dracula.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. But I know you don't like that 30s style of acting, and it would be true of any of the films, that you would watch. If we brought any film from the 30s.
You know who I liked in that one? Renfield was great. I thought he was good. The guy playing Renfield's, the guy who was taking care of Renfield.
The English guy?
No, he's just
the caretaker of the place?
assistant guy.
Mr. Renfield?
That guy. I liked him. He goes, "You're all crazy," and she's
I like him. I think he was a comedian.
Harker was like. It's a thankless.
No, believe me, Ralph. I played Harker. It's a thankless role.
Right.
It sucks.
Because you're like kind of a douche.
You're nobody. I wanted to be Dracula, but I wasn't.
Well, Dracula sucks.
Yes, he does.
Nice.
Where's your
wait a second.
Shot? There you go. But I mean, I should have played Renfield, but we had a great Renfield, so I can't.
Yeah, Renfield, he was good.
Yeah,
not so good in the 70s.
He was that's Dwight Fry. He was the humpback in Frankenstein too. Same guy.
Yeah. Now, another one I think is very distinctive is Coppola's, which in one hand is a hot mess and it's a disaster. Mainly it's like I just never believed Keanu Reeves for 1 second, and I never believed Winona Ryder. But once again, the Transylvania stuff is great.
Well, the visuals of that whole movie.
I love the fantasy aspects of it, like the train going through, and it's like little models and cutouts, and the battle. It's like, I mean, it has a
his
tremendous. Yeah, it's got some really tremendous stuff.
All right, so do you think the 78, 79 version is a good Dracula?
Well, let's hear Debbie's version of it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I like both. I mean, Bela Lugosi, he just, starts the whole ball rolling. And you got to start from there, and then you move forward to the sexuality of the vampires.
Did you find Frank Langella sexy?
Yes, very much so. Because
he is.
One thing about him, there were two women, and he chose the one. What was my point that night we were watching?
He chose a strong woman to be his queen, basically.
Yes, but they both had that desire for him very much so.
Oh
yeah, as soon as they met him.
Yeah, right away. And it was definitely, I think his austere manner was what the women found sort of dangerous. And that's true for most girls, when they start looking for a mate, they find that women will actually go with bad boys,
But he didn't.
But
I mean, but
he
Debbie,
wasn't a bad boy.
He played his sympathetic. I mean, he kept talking about wanting to be able to see the sun. He wasn't happy.
But he was also arrogant. I am the king
living forever.
of my kind.
But when he was pushed, he some of his true colors came out. But I found him to be a sympathetic character that wasn't happy in the situation. Because I mean, you live as an immortal, then everybody you love dies around you, right? And I definitely got that vibe from him, unlike other vampires who just like the raw power, right?
Right.
So I mean, from a woman's
Christopher Lee.
perspective, wouldn't you find that attractive? That it wasn't just
Like the Christopher Lee's character has no inner light.
right,
Is Dracula.
right. I mean, bloodshot eyes, always blood coming down the sides of his mouth.
Messy.
What's his name? Frank Langella said no fangs.
That's right, and no blood, coming
no
out of his
fangs.
mouth. He acquiesced with the thing.
My favorite line, which came out of both of them, was the line about "You've only lived one life. How can you be so intelligent?"
which
For
is
a
from
man.
the play.
For a man
okay,
only.
okay. I
Yeah.
thought that
You're
was
a wise
great.
man for
That was-
someone who's not lived more than one life.
Here's some garlic, and then they,
Yeah.
I don't know how they.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Sacrilege.
I don't know how he couldn't take an over Laurence Olivier's guy.
Well, that
would've
was
been-
the big complaint about that movie, that Olivier was no threat to Dracula, and he wasn't. He was old and frail. He was too old for that part.
Does Harker always live in all these films? Does he? He never.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Van Helsing are the ones that kill the vampire in the.
It's interesting because if it was Star Trek, he would have been he'd have been a red shirt.
He'd been a red
Yeah.
shirt, exactly.
He would have been a rich.
Especially in 1979, driving on that goofy car. I'm sure it's a great car. Chris, is that a great car? You're the
Wonderful car.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Well-made car.
Yeah. I hate the fact that they, I don't know why, I hate that sped up. Whenever they try to make something look like it's going faster by.
Oh yeah, they overcrank it.
That's the magic
it
of film.
just looks terrible.
Yeah, George Miller does that a lot, so obviously I think it's amazing. But I know
But I don't know. He hides it much better for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't
that's
know.
true.
All right, I don't know. I mean, is there much more to say? Do you guys have anything else you want to add to that?
I want to say one more thing and part of it is because Dracula is this classic character. I mean, I watch a lot of fantasy, science fiction, genre, horror. I love vampire stuff as much as anybody else. When I'm watching something that's a vampire thing, especially if it's something that is already ongoing, like a TV series, and they're like, "Oh, Dracula's going to show up," I get really bored. That doesn't mean that it isn't going to be good, and sometimes it's good. But like, I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Dracula showed up. I didn't care. Blade 2, fantastic. Blade Trinity, they're going to fight Dracula. Who cares? Like, it seems like it's its own thing. It's its own version of almost an eternal, original version of a vampire. You don't have to stuff it into everything else, because even though I didn't love these movies, they're not bad or dumb or anything. I mean, they hold together as movies much better than Coppola's version.
Yeah.
But I think, it's interesting when I watched The Wolfman that Benicio del Toro did. There's some great stuff in that, and there's also some really boring stuff in that. But I didn't come to that with really any specific. I literally had an image of Lon Chaney, with the hair appearing and then as the monster. But Dracula, there's so much more to it with the accent
so
and the
many,
outfit, all that
yeah,
stuff.
my God.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the Christopher Lee ones either. I haven't sought out the Dracula part of vampire stuff. That doesn't mean other vampire stuff isn't good.
You mean Dracula in
I really
general?
wanted Martin to be good, the George Romero movie, and it wasn't. So
Oh, I like Martin.
You mean specifically the character of Dracula.
Yes,
You don't mean
specifically
vampires.
Dracula.
Ah,
no,
okay,
specifically Dracula, because
okay,
I like lots of vampire stuff. And maybe somebody was
Twilight.
writing a movie right now where Dracula will show up. I think Renfield looks fun. The fact that it's a Dracula thing doesn't put me off of seeing it. But if you're going to ask me what vampires are the least interesting for me to watch, the lowest obviously is Twilight, and then Dracula, because Twilight sucks, and Dracula is it's the like the text. It's the original one. It's been done so many times. That said, I'm glad I saw both of these movies, because for some, probably because of this Dracula thing that I have, I had
By
just
the
never
way,
gotten around to seeing
since
it.
you
And I've
brought up
seen
the
Freaks, so I know he's a good
The fact you brought up
filmmaker.
Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing played a great Van Helsing, action star Van Helsing. So he was a formidable antagonist for Dracula.
Hugh Jackman did too in that movie.
Yeah, what an action star.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say one thing about the Hammer
You can say more
Dracula
than
films is that I feel Christopher Lee is a very compelling Dracula, as if he's very feral, very violent, very much more masculine and like
Tortured, much more
violent.
tortured, right? Too. I mean, he's more tortured.
No, he's
No,
not
he's
tortured.
not
He's
tortured.
an
Oh, really?
animal.
Oh,
You're
really?
thinking
The
of
problem
Count
is I don't
Dooku.
think any of the movies. I think he's better. It's a different take than Bela Lugosi or Langella, but I don't think any of the movies hold together. I'm not as big a fan of the Hammer movies.
Well,
in
the
general.
first couple, I think the first couple hold up. The later ones, like
Yeah.
they did a couple in the 70s.
Dracula
At one point,
1970.
he's a CEO of some company.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
listen, you're going. I mean,
And he
I
did
want to
as the
see.
money grab.
I've never seen Blackula. I want to see Blackula.
Yeah, I haven't
That's
seen
fun.
So I mean, there's
I don't know if I'd
so
still
many.
like it.
John Carpenter has his with
Near
James
Dark?
Woods. Near Dark is
Vampires.
fantastic, but
Well,
there's
I
vampires
believe-
with.
Well, that's a classic. John Carpenter's Vampires is a stone cold,
yeah.
brilliant movie. Obviously.
Not the sequel.
Now I
not
remember
that.
we did a whole series on Dracula and vampire stories and such, and we said at that time there's no stopping it. I mean, there could be a whole generation. I'd love to see what the millennials will come up with.
That's
their
where Twilight
vampire.
came from, though. I mean, that's the problem.
But the truth is, if you showed someone a picture of Dracula almost at any age, like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, with the tuxedo and the cape, they would know who it was.
Yeah, not just a vampire. That's
Right.
Dracula. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Count
you know,
Chocula.
Yeah.
Count
He's
Chocula.
great.
I mean, I didn't
There you
even
go.
think
Count
of the cereal.
Chocula, the guy. What's the Muppet? The
Don't
Count.
make me
I
hungry.
love
One,
to
two,
count.
the numbers.
One, two,
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
The
No,
Count.
Wow.
It's all right. Let's rate this puppy.
Uh,
The 78 version.
Okay.
Well, I look as a
79 version. I'm sorry.
I think
keep
as a
saying 78.
remake, again, not comparing it directly to the original because I think it's so different. I think it works for what they were trying to do. Is it my cup of tea? Probably not. But for what they were trying to do, it worked. Because of him, because of Frank Langella.
Right.
Sean Debbie.
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
And Yippee-Ki-Yay, not my favorite version, but
Okay.
still, I
Drew.
enjoy it.
Drew, what do you got?
Again, not my cup of tea is or blood or whatever, but I really like Frank Langella, and that I'm kind of surprised because I like him so much that I had actually not gotten around to watching this. So it was worth watching for him and for the sex scene with the light and the mist and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. It gave Ralph a boner.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's why
again.
I'm giving it a high rating. Bonus scale, very high.
John, be subtle like me.
Jesus, I was going to use that,
He
but you
already
already
said
took it
it
away
Sean.
from me.
He already said it.
Wow. Chris.
Yeah, I would say for me it's a yippee-ki meh. Honestly, I didn't find Langella quite as engaging as other people did.
Did your wife watch it?
I'm sorry, no, she didn't actually.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
And
too bad.
but I did really like a lot of the things that John Badham tried. I mean, I thought he said, I'm going to be creative. I'm going to take some risks here, and I enjoyed the kind of the choices he made more than I enjoyed the film itself.
Yeah, he did the crawling on the wall.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
looked
that
great.
was pretty for that
Scraping
time.
off
It's
the
pretty
window.
effective. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she has
That was in
when
the
they're on the
book.
back together. That was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. They
And
went through
even
some
that
stuff.
weird kind of laser spiral thing.
Oh, that was so
found it-
cool.
For some reason, that worked for me in like kind of a weird way.
Yeah.
They
Well,
got
he
those
directed
lasers
Saturday
from the
Night
Who.
Saturday Night Fever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
he
got
did.
those lasers from the Who's stage show.
And Nick of Time.
Yeah. And look at Bird on a Wire.
He
Oh,
did
boy.
Bird on a Wire too.
Oh yeah.
And
He
the
is the
Well,
most
listen,
Not a lot of
hit
all right.
and miss director
Good
ever.
job. So generally, I think it's like a mixed bag on this one.
yeah.
All right, before we go to the wheel, please remind everybody to subscribe, hit the like button.
Do you want
I
me to
figured
do
me-
that? Because you just did it.
Yeah, go ahead, do it, John. Do it again.
Listen, everybody, you 120 people that watch this show religiously, get other people to subscribe, hit the notification button. Now,
You've
let me
already
just say this. We have
subscribed.
128 views almost. It's between 110 and 125 every single show, but there's only about 20 likes. So I think
I think
we
that
take
says it
likes
all.
or dislikes. Just give us something. Slam it.
Yep.
Okay?
Keep telling us what movies to watch from
All right,
India.
here we go. So let's go to the next
the
week's
Wheel
film.
of Fun.
Here we go.
This was a good sequel thing to watch.
But it's still a lot on this. Oh, let me.
Yeah,
Dracula.
Dracula's still on the
I
wheel.
know. I saw. I apologize. So if it comes up, I'll spin again. But
Well, there's lots of other Draculas to watch, I guess.
That's true.
Son of a bitch.
So what do you
How
want to
did
watch
I
the
know?
Hammer one?
Oh no, we're not doing that.
Love
I'm
at first
sorry.
bite.
No. Sorry.
We already featured that
I can't.
Well, we
that
know
would've
it's
been
not
3 weeks in a
rigged.
row for me.
one. Watch Dracula again.
Dracula.
Yeah, go get Carter. I think this
Get
is a
Carter.
Chris.
All right, get Carter. The Stallone version?
I believe this is the Stallone version. Am I wrong, Chris?
Yeah, no, this is the Stallone version, obviously the remake of the Mike Hodges movie with Michael Caine.
Oh, I
This
saw
is
that.
Stallone. And it's directed by Walter Hill, a favorite of
Oh
mine.
wow.
So
Streets of Fire.
you know it, man. So yeah, this is one of those. I love the original, and but it's funny. While the new one is different, it's I remember when it came out, I actually had a kind of an interesting conversation with one of the film professors at Salisbury, and he had an interesting take on this film that I did not. It had not crossed my mind, so we'll talk about that next time.
The
Good.
steak
And I like
people?
the way you set that up.
Yes, the
steak-
steak people.
Oh, well, no.
Yeah, I actually went to school to know how to prepare steaks.
Oh, I thought Salisbury State Prison. You're talking about the.
Oh, I thought you
college.
said.
I want to talk about all the different cuts I got.
Just
raw.
tell me ahead of time. Did they Stallone it? Did they Stallone the film?
Well, what do you think? What do you think? If
I'm
Stallone's in a
asking.
film, what do you think?
Because I liked. I saw the first one the past 6 months. Just I watched it on my own because it came up on TCM. I was like, I'm going to watch this. I really liked it. I thought
Oh yeah,
Michael Caine
the
was
original
great.
one's
Have
great.
you seen the one Mr. Brown he did a few
That
years
is
ago?
such a
4
good
years ago?
movie.
Mr.
Right.
Brown
Death Wish
Yeah.
for old people.
Yeah, which
with
is
Michael
him.
Caine.
John Harris
Yeah.
is the drug dealer is the most terrifying thing I've seen in a movie in a long
That's
time.
the one that ends up in a marijuana factory, right? Or like a
I think
grow
it's a
house.
big cannabis shootout
Yeah,
type
yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
And a good film.
Now,
Mr. Brown.
I have seen the original Get Carter. I have not seen the remake. So, or have I? Is that the one where he goes to Mars and he falls in love with a princess? Or is that a different
That's the
Carter?
one.
That's the one. Okay, good.
John
I love that. I
John
love that
Carter.
movie. So
Oh,
Get John Carter.
Get Carter back. All right, enough of this. Okay, let's do a round of What'd You Watch? Sean
Coach
and Debbie, what'd you
Carter.
watch?
We had listened to a podcast that had a long interview with Lee Grant, the actress.
Oh yeah.
And we had both decided, she talked a lot about the Hal Ashby film, The Landlord, which I had not seen and Debbie had not seen. And it was difficult to see because it wasn't streaming anywhere. But fortunately, someone had a really crappy dub of it, the entire movie, up on YouTube. So,
Is that Bo Bridges?
yeah, Bo Bridges, Pearl Bailey, Lou Gossett Jr., and Lee Grant, and Robert Klein's in it as the sister's boyfriend.
Oh wow.
And it's about a guy. He's got he's from a very rich family, and the father is extremely conservative. They have these black servants like it's antebellum South or pre-antebellum South. And he decides to buy like a slum big townhouse, evict the residents, and turn it into gentrify it. But when he moves in, they're not going and they're not paying the rent. And he just sort of gets involved in their lives. And it's like a comedy. And it's also, he's like a liberal, but it doesn't let him off the hook at all. And it ends on kind of and I don't know if he really learns. How does that really end, Debbie?
I don't know.
It's like he gets one of the girls pregnant, but he doesn't want to Tennant's pregnant, but he doesn't want to take the baby, and she doesn't
It's
want to.
kind of crazy. It's out there.
Are you recommending it or not recommending it?
I don't know.
It's very much a picture from like 1971.
Okay.
So Ralph, you would probably love it.
I can't wait
And
to
I
watch
love
it.
how
I don't know. Maybe I'll watch
I don't
it.
know. I mean, we watched the whole thing.
I love Hal Ashby generally.
Well, there's a ring.
Hal Ashby's interesting director.
We
He's an
watched the
interesting
whole
director.
thing.
He's got an interesting take on things.
Yeah.
This was probably for me the least compelling of his movies, but Lee Grant in it is, is fabulous.
I love Lee Grant.
Yeah,
And she has this long scene with Pearl Bailey. Is great. in
She's
it.
really
She
fantastic.
steals every scene
Yeah,
she's
she's
in.
great.
And they have a long scene with Lee Grant, and which is hilarious. Pearl Bailey gets her drunk and everything. It's a very good
maybe
stuff
we
in the
should watch
movie.
it
I
then.
don't know whether it holds around. And even though the screenwriter was African American, I believe, and it was based on a book, it's not necessary to take on races that would be maybe popularly accepted today. So,
Well,
It's called The Landlord.
The Landlord.
And you can't find it anywhere but a crappy dub.
It was on TCM for a while.
Yeah, it wasn't on. They didn't have it in their little reserve thing they have.
All right, John, what'd you watch?
Okay,
You remember?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'll do is this.
You don't have to. Don't.
No, I want to.
We'll take-
So in 1972, I was 8 years old, and
You're a baby.
I watched Saturday morning cartoons. And when you were a kid in the 70s, Saturday morning cartoons was it. You didn't have 40 channels playing cartoons. And also one of the shows, a lot of the shows I used to watch are from Sid and Marty Krofft with all the puppets, H.R. Puffin stuff, Sigmund and the Sea Monster. Well, for some reason, YouTube has been putting in my queue all these shows, Lidsville, The Bugaloos, Dr. Shrinker. And I watched a bunch of episodes just to kind of harken back to
Are these current films?
No, they're not. They're from the 70s.
Okay.
So it was funny when I was watching them, because when you're a kid watching these, and for those who don't know, Charles Nelson Riley plays the bad guy in Lidsville, and he's got
the best.
He's got a flying top hat that he can turn into a regular top hat. And what I remember,
that's right. That was the big
I remember
thing.
being 8 years old thinking, I want that flying hat. Where can I get that flying hat? But all those shows, when you're a kid looking at it through kid eyes, it's so magical. And, every character's a hat of some kind. The Bugaloos were this British group that had wings and they flew around and stuff. And it was just an amazing thing when you're a kid. When you look back on it through almost 60-year-old eyes, it's like, what? Were these guys all on drugs when they made these shows?
Yes,
I guess they were. But Sid and Marty Krofft, when you hear interviews with them, that's not the way it was. They weren't. They were making kid shows. That's what they wanted to do. And again, looking through innocent eyes, I could see the appeal of it as a kid. But as an adult, looking back on it, I was like, damn, man, this was some freak show. But they had Martha Ray was a villain in it. Witchy Pooh was Billy Burke. She was also the genie in Lidsville. So it's not like you're talking a bunch of schlubs. Charles Nelson Riley. It was just fun to go back and relive a very innocent time when you're a kid watching that stuff. Because frankly, now a lot of kid shows are so adult that I wouldn't want at 8 years old. I wouldn't want a kid watching it. And those things, as wacky as they were pretty innocent. And it made me smile reliving some of that stuff. So anyway, that's what
I might disagree with that. I think
You
they
can,
were,
but it's
I
my
think they were
opinion,
sneaking
so-
things in there that you probably just
No,
didn't
not
catch.
okay. Fine. Let's say that's true. They're not sneaking anything in anymore. They might sneak it in
True.
back then. They're not sneaking
True.
it in now.
Maybe. All right, Chris has young kids. What did you watch this week?
It was Mother's Day, so it was a pretty busy weekend. I literally finished the other movie we watched about 15 minutes before we got on the show. But I will say this, just because you guys mentioned it earlier, a couple of weeks ago, I did revisit War Games. And
Oh, great movie.
I saw that movie in the theater when it came out, and I really enjoy that film. Even now, it still kind of holds up.
Yeah.
Even though it has that kind of very obvious, the only winning move is not to play.
How about a nice
Well, it's
game of
obvious
chess?
now because they learned it.
Exactly, which is good. No, I didn't really watch too much stuff. Watched a little baseball here and there. The O's are
Well, you don't have to.
The O's having a good season.
Yeah, they look
They
good.
are. Cedric Mullins hit for the cycle. Awesome.
All right. Drew, you got a little extra time. Chris just gave you a little extra time.
Oh, God. Give Drew
boy.
extra time. Oh, my God.
Well, in 1972, I wasn't going to be born for another
Thank you
4
for that.
years.
Thank you
so
for that.
I did not grow up watching those shows on Saturday morning, but I do remember that time where that was when you would watch cartoons because that was it. So I saw the movie that Kelly saw a couple weeks ago in the theater when I went to see Evil Dead Rise. She went to see Air, the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck movie.
It's on Prime.
Matt
It's now on
Damon.
Amazon Prime. I don't know anything about basketball, so I was excited when I would recognize. Oh, I know who Charles Barkley is. I was excited about that. But also, I know that Air Jordans exist, and so I love a movie that's telling me a true story. I mean, I know the Titanic sank. It's not that kind of thing, and Air is wonderful. It is just a wonderful movie. You get completely involved in it. It's really well done. It's Ben Affleck again, like. And this is not a criticism. He's got his own thing going on, and there's also some Soderbergh in this movie in the best way. And it's got, wonderful cast with Viola Davis and Jason Bateman, and it's
already on Prime.
Yeah, it's a true story that you know how it ends, and the way that they tell the story is very entertaining, and the way that they handle Michael Jordan himself and how he is in the movie. It's not quite the Anthony Quinn Muhammad movie or something, but the way that they handle portraying him is interesting and well done, because it really is about, on that side of the negotiations, it's about Viola Davis as his mother, and she's great. The other thing that I started watching The Diplomat, the new Kerry Russell show. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's given me a Sorkin fix in terms of like just really fast, smart dialogue, and Rufus Sewell is having a great time. You don't have any idea, is this guy a monster? Is he amazing? He seems like a crappy husband. Is he an incredibly, skilled, foreign service professional? You have no idea. And totally worth your time. I think I've watched 3 of the 8 episodes so far, and I definitely look forward to watching more.
All the episodes have dropped?
Yeah, it's Netflix, I think, so everything's up. 8 or 10 episodes, and I mean, I'll follow Kerry Russell anywhere after The Americans, and this is it's just great, and it's very sharp, and the characters are great, and I don't really know where they're going to go with it, but I am thoroughly enjoying the ride. So that's 2 good things I watched this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, Drew, my wife, her favorite show of all time is The West Wing, and she really enjoyed The Diplomat. So
cool. Yeah, well,
Aaron
that's the
Sorkin.
other thing. I've been listening
listen
to
to
some of Rob Lowe's audiobooks, and he tells a lot of great West Wing stories and stuff. And,
I could listen to Sorkin dialogue all day long.
Oh yeah,
I just love it. And I watched this is not part of my What'd You Watch, but Ben Affleck and Matt Damon did one of the on YouTube where they talk about their careers, but they talked about their careers together because they started together and they're still together. And it was really nice to hear Ben Affleck talk about what Matt Damon brings to the films when he directs these films. And Ben Affleck should just direct films now and not act in them, because he's getting The Hypnotist just came out or something that he's getting killed on. And anyway,
he's good. He's good in Air. He's good in Air, but I agree.
He directed that as well.
He's a more interesting director than actor these days. Yeah.
And he's great in The Accountant.
But he's an even better poker player.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. All right, so I'm a Watergate freak. I love anything Watergate.
Yeah, you're watching The Plumbers.
I am watching The White House Plumbers, but it also made me because I'm watching The White House Plumbers, I'm also going and not rewatching, but Gaslit on Showtime.
Is that with Julia Roberts?
Julia Roberts plays Martha Mitchell. And watching these two together is surrealistic. It's unbelievable, the cross-pollination between what I'm getting in The White House Plumbers and what I'm getting in Gaslit. They're both fantastic. And the thing about Gaslit is they're playing homage to All the President's Men, because there are scenes that happen where you see the characters from All the President's Men in the scenes. They don't make a big deal out of it. They just do it. Specifically, there's a scene, if you remember in All the President's Men, when Robert Redford first goes to the courthouse, and he has this conversation with a lawyer at the bench, And he leans in. He goes, "What's going on here? Who's the lawyer for these guys?" And if you're familiar with the movie, you know what I'm talking about. So they have that same scene in this one, and you see this guy with a flannel sport coat come in and does the exact same move talking to this lawyer, and it's just in the foreground of the scene, has nothing to do with the scene that's going on, but it's an homage to All the President's Men, and then they do this thing down with Deep Throat and all this. I am loving all this stuff. It's right in my wheelhouse. The 72, I recorded on audio cassette Nixon's resignation. I did a paper about Watergate, and
Wow.
they're both. And the White House Plumbers between Thoreau, what's his name? Justin
Thoreau, yeah, he's amazing.
He's doing G. Gordon Liddy, and Howard Hunt is
Harrelson.
played by Willie Harrelson. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, Willie Harrelson's very good.
And Lena Headey's playing Howard Hunt's wife, and she's
Yeah, Lena Headey is good too. I like
she's
her.
great. Headley. What did I say? Headley.
Yes.
And
That's Leona Headley. She can sue us later for this.
We got to fix this. Yeah. In 20 years, you'll sue her.
It's fine. All right. So anyway, that's what I watched. It's great. You got the White House Plumbers is fantastic on HBO Max. You should check
I'll
it out.
bet.
Soon to be
But they're
just
not dropping.
Max.
They're once a week. I'm waiting for Succession. I have 2 more Successions.
Yeah.
So now I
Pretty
got the White
intense.
House. Succession is unbelievable, but that's another thing. So, all right. So next week it is, what are we doing? Oh, Get Carter.
And then Get
Stallone
Carter.
version. The Stallone version. See if it gets Stalloned. All right, everybody. Anything else to say?
Hey, I'm going to kill you, all right?
Yeah.
That's
Ugh.
cool, eh?
All right.
I will
I
say,
think Debbie will like it. She always likes.
What will you
Stallone.
say, Chris?
talking about Sid and Marty Krofft.
Yeah.
To this day, man, I will say as a kid, the Slee Stack
Ah,
out from Land of the Lost. Those are some scary dudes.
yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I'm trying to think of which cartoons made me horny back in the 70s. But I'll figure
For me, it was
Electro Woman and
Scooby-Doo.
Diner Girl.
Johnny Quest and Haji.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a good week.
See ya.
Scarring my
See ya,
childhood.
guys.